Okay, so we're back to the wall where I removed the brick earlier on. So I'm now going to replace that brick. Now, if you've watched the other videos, you'll remember that the brick was totally shot and not suitable to reuse. So luckily, as I mentioned in that video, we've got some pre-war Cheshire Common from our good friends at Build Base Nantwich. So that is the right size brick to go in there. It's going to fit perfectly. Because these are an imperial brick, so again, for the older generation amongst us, all construction measurements were in imperial, which is feet and inches. But then obviously decimalisation came along, and now everything changed to millimetres and metres. And that can be very confusing. So these are an imperial brick, so that means they're a 72mm brick. That's the height of the brick. All modern bricks now are 65mm. Which if I tried to put a 65mm brick in there, it would have a massive joint around it and look shocking. So it's really important that you select the right type of brick and the right size of brick, because you want it to look right. You don't want it to look a dog's dinner, do we? So that's going to go in there. So I'll clean that out. So what I'm going to do now, and you have to be reasonably quick with this, because with these being an old common brick, they're very porous, so it takes all the moisture out of the cement and mortar really quickly. So you can't mess about with this. If you're going to take your time, then maybe you might want to make your mortar a little bit wetter. But again, going back to the mortar mixing video, you've got to be really careful with that. So I've got my bucket of cement, and I will do this quickly, but I will talk you through it afterwards. So I'm just going to use my pointing trowel just because it's easier. And I'm going to put the bed on first. So you put the mortar in there, and you're just creating a little V shape in the middle. And I'll get you a close up of this. You don't want a solid bed because you want the brick to settle into that. So once I've put that mortar joint on there, that's the bed joint. I'm now going to put the perp joints on, because it'll be really difficult to push the mortar in there after. So just using the trowel, you're getting a small amount on, and I'm pushing quite hard on the brick so as it sticks. If you don't apply any pressure, it'll just fall off and you'll get a little bit frustrated. So that's the bed joint in, and like I say, we're going to have to move quick, otherwise that'll go off. So I'm going to get the brick. Now, a common mistake is you will try get the brick and you'll push it in there, it'll drop, it'll push all the mortar to the back, and you'll have nothing under the brick. And it's really frustrating, but there is a little knack that we can do. So you get your brick trowel, and you put the brick on the brick trowel, and you put it as high up as possible, and then you just slide it in, and then while supporting that, just pull the trowel out, and the bed's remained intact, okay? And it's like magic, isn't it? And then I'm just going to tap that down, and I can put the trowel on the top, just give it a little bit of a rock, and as long as the bottom of the brick, which we call the arris, as long as that is flush with the top of the brick that was existing, and the top of the brick is flush with the top of that bottom of that brick, you know the brick's okay. You've got to be careful you don't put it on an angle. Some of these are all over the place, and that's because they've been put in ever so slightly incorrectly. So I'm just pushing that out, and that's in. Now again, the mortar is going to go off really quickly because it's a lovely sunny day. So all I'm going to do first and foremost is I'm going to get some mortar to point up, and that's a skill in itself. So as you can see here, I've got mortar on my trowel, but I've created a little ramp. Don't know if you can see that. And then you need to get the mortar on the trowel. So you do that, and as you can see, that's a lovely little pyramid shape. A little wedge shape, and that means when I push it in, I'm not going to get it on the brick. But don't be tempted, put a load on, get a small amount at a time. So that's a small amount, and you're just tucking it into the joint without getting it on the sides of the brick. Small amounts at a time, push that in there, and then again at the bottom you're just pushing it in, you're tucking it in. Now I haven't got to do much tucking because we put the bed joint in, so the mortar already exists. But I'm just putting a little bit more on the top and down the side, and then we've got to keep an eye on that, okay, because that's going to go off really quickly. And I'll show you what we're going to do in a minute to make that look the same as everything around. So we're going to do something called a weather struck joint, which you use the trowel on an angle to create this little slanted feature. So any water runs down the brick onto the joint and off. Okay, it's important that it's tucked in, so the top is slightly recessed, the bottom is flush. I'll get a close up of this when we've finished. So I'm just going to let that go off a little bit before we worry too much about it. But obviously this is going to be the area that is quite critical because there's nothing in there, and it's our job as a bricklayer to make sure that's completely full, because then it's structurally sound. Lots of bricklayers, unfortunately, will just put a bit of mortar on the front, point it up and walk away. We don't do that. That's not how we do it. It's got to be absolutely full, otherwise it's not going to work. So all I'm doing is the trowel is on a slight angle, it's flush on the right hand side of the brick, and I'm just pulling the trowel down, and that's just making it nice and neat. Take any little of the mortar droplets off, and again I'm just tucking that in and sliding across, and then you can just pull some of the bits off and come through. Little bit of a scrape, and when that's gone off a little bit, you can make that look a little bit better, and you just get rid of all the little snots, we call it, where the mortar's just hanging. So that bit's done. You can pretty much be certain that that's okay, and we've got nothing on the face of the brick. That's the important bit. So now we've got to do the same process. So again, you create that little wedge on the trowel, and I'm making this look quite easy, I guess, by just doing that. You'll find that you'll try it and it'll fall on the floor, it'll go all over the place, you just won't get it. So it's just the hand-eye coordination. So you've got the ramp, this trowel is slightly, well, very much sticking up in the air, and I'm pushing the pointed trowel into this trowel. Push, and it should stay on like that, and because it's the lovely wedge shape, when I put it in there, I don't get nothing on the brick. Okay, and you just keep on loading your trowel and pushing that into the brick. Now again, you might think, oh look at that, it's full up already, great. I can draw me money, I can go to the client and ask for me money, it looks a really good job, everybody's happy. But once you've got the mortar into this joint and it looks full, you've then got to get your pointed trowel and you've got to push it in, and you can see that's going to the back of the brick, and you just got to keep repeating that process now until it's full. You can get a little square bar to help push it into the back, and that's always good, but I'll turn the video off now, and I'll give you a close-up of the weather struck once we've finished.